Welcome, everyone, to the first talk of our summer session, Beyond Words, Before Knowing, Exploring the Way of Practice Realization. This is one way of naming what we're doing here this week, each one alone, and all of us together. Practicing realizing. One reality, one all-pervading sitting. The inspiration for the title comes from Dogen, the remarkable 13th century master who uses words to convey a world that is beyond words. The fact of who you are. Dogen gives us the phrase, the mind of before knowing, or beyond knowing, the not knowing. He calls a straightforward, bare heart. Straightforward, bare, so bare. And by its nature, indivisible. This is that Shin we talk about, your own heart-mind. So exploring the way of practice realization. Practice realization is Dogen's name for Zazen. The practice, and this expression, this hyphenated but not two, practice is a particular kind of sitting. It springs from Dogen's own vital experience. This experience on hearing his Chinese master, Tiantong Rujing, call out, the practice of Zen means body and mind falls away. Or another translation, Zen is body and mind dropping away. That happened to Dogen when he was 30 years old. And that's what this is. Body and mind fallen away. As Rujing put it in response, fallen away, body and mind. Fallen away, fallen away. So based on his experience, Dogen gives clear instructions for what to do in sitting, a sort of outline for what's going on in Zazen. We know it from this famous verse in the Genjo koan. Here's one translation. To study the way, study the self. To study the self, forget the self. To forget the self, be awakened by the myriad things. To be awakened by the myriad things, drop away the body and mind of self and others. Or here's a slightly different rendering. To study the way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be actualized by the myriad things. To be actualized by the myriad things is to drop away body and mind of self and others. The verse goes on. These are the first 4 lines, and they are key to this practice. The way, this way that we're studying, that we're looking into, actually embodying, is the way of being, which for Dogen is practice realization. To take it up in all earnestness is to ask the fundamental question: who am I? What is this? To see into this construct, that self, we say with a small s, that construct of I, me, mine, to see it clearly is to see through it. To forget the self is to realize we don't exist in the way we have imagined. Not to figure it, but by experience. Therefrom comes this instruction, this invitation for us to get out of our head and into the body, this locus of experience. Actually, as I say this, the locus of experience. Forget, let go that deeply ingrained habit. And maybe the space where you're sitting is suddenly vacant. The myriad things come rushing in. This word myriad, I don't think I was very aware of it until came to Zen and to Dogen. It's beautiful. It's Greek word for 10,000. But Dogen's talking about being awakened, actualized by the many multitudinous things, the tens of thousands of millions of things, and each thing, all of it, each bit of it, all of you. Each sound, each sensation, each sight, complete and completely whole. And in that wholeness, utterly equal to every other thing. To be actualized by the myriad things is to drop away body and mind of self and others. Suddenly seems kind of easy to say, and wow. Drop away your sense of self. Let fall the sense of other. And drop away the difference. There just isn't any separation. this self, other. There's just one. Unconditionally one. Just this sound occupies everything. One way of putting it. No wonder Dogen sees so clearly that practice realization is one. Awakening is not some goal. Bless our hearts how we go after that. It's itself, the path. It's your every step, your every breath. In that amazing essay of Dogen's, The Universal Instructions or Recommendations on Zazen, he writes, the Zazen I speak of, what we're doing, is not meditation practice. It is simply the Dharma gate of peace and joy. Sometimes we hear it translated joyful ease. Might already be wondering about that. It's a kind of unconditional seeing into what this is. He goes on, the practice realization of totally culminated enlightenment. This is the Zazen. And finally, it is the koan realized. Your sitting is the koan realized. So what if the koan is mu? Here's case one in the Mumonkan, or gateless gate, or Hinton translates no gate, gateway. John, my colleague, said gateless checkpoint. So it's called Joshu's dog. A monk asked Joshu in all earnestness, does a dog have Buddha nature or not? Joshu said, mu. Mu. Koan Roshi writes it with an exclamation mark. Mu. I never tire of this story of Joshu. Somehow it conveys to us this world that he's embodying and sharing and, right here. But he's got this story of being, I think, starting practice around 17, deep experience, awakening at 18. He started studying under the guidance of his master, Nansen, and studied with Nansen, practiced together, intimately together. The record is full of their interactions, 40 years. And when Joshu's around, late 50s, 58 or so, some say 57, they figure it differently. Nansen dies, and Joshu mourns. There's a traditional 3-year mourning period. And then he sets off on this practice of pilgrimage. By then, 18, it said, 18 great enlightenment experiences and countless others. And he still goes off to deepen and clarify this world. For 20 years, wandering, checking himself, checking others, just pursuing this, exploring this. And finally, when he's 80, he settles down at this very small, poor temple called Kanon, named for this bodhisattva of great compassion, Avalokiteshvara, we chant, whose chant we chant in the Heart Sutra. Kanon is the one, this bodhisattva of great compassion. So Joshu teaches that till he's 120 years old when he dies. There's a record of it in China, at Rinzai's temple, not too far away, engraved in the wall long ago. Joshu, Jiao Shu. Chinese isn't very good. So Muman Ekai, another great master, compiles this Mumon Kan, gateless gate. Sort of notable that Mumon's life is kind of like a frame, his time span, around Dogen's life. Dogen just lived 53 years. Muman lived to be 77. He's 17 when Dogen is born. And, this heyday, late in the Tang Dynasty of Chan Zen. Muman worked single-mindedly, you could say, straightforward, bare heart on this case, Joshu's dog, for 6 years. He practiced with so much determination that it said where he was sitting, if he began to be sleepy, he would, knock his head against the pillar such that he had a lump. He was so deep into this. I am not advocating that. It's just, glad we don't have pillars. We have a great wall. No need to do that. It was his way. So one day, standing near the Dharma hall, Muman hears the sound of the drum calling the monks to their midday meal. He hears that sound and is suddenly, deeply awake, falling away. He writes that great verse, a peal of thunder under the bright blue sky, a peal of thunder. But there's not a cloud in the sky. It's so clear. Just the sound. The multitude of living beings on earth have opened their eyes, he exclaims. All things in the world bow alike. It's one bowing. Mount Sumeru jumps up and dances Sandai. That's his verse. Mount Sumeru, this center of the universe, the whole universe, and Sandai, which is said to be this very lively dance. There was this moment in Shanna's movement this morning, if you caught it, just Sandai moment. Whole world dancing. So based on his experience, Muman puts this case first. Many of you know that a group of us from Mountain Cloud made the trek, the travel, the pilgrimage to Canada last week to join this North American Sambozen session that was led by Yamada Ryo'un Roshi, the abbot of Sambozen. He's 83 years old, active businessman still, incredibly active. And so generous with his teaching. Just as a note, I started studying with Ryo'un Roshi in 2003. This first next generation Kenshukai teacher training. And I've gone to at least one session with him every year since, often more than one. Such a privilege. It's the tradition at Sesshin, one that we're observing, that every time the first talk is on Joshu's talk. That first time I heard Ryo'un Roshi give Teisho on Mu, 2003. I hadn't met him before, and he invited us to kind of gather around, so I just put my cushion near. And at the end of that talk, by the end, my lap was wet with tears. So clearly did he convey this world, this empty, infinite oneness world. The world Dogen discovered in body and mind of self and other falling away. The world Muman awakened to at the sound of the drum. The world Shakyamuni Buddha realized on seeing the morning star from the top of heaven to the bottom of the earth, just one shining. One existence, one world. Our birthright, although that might be another Teisho. Birth. Right now. So, having just heard Ryo'un Roshi give this most recent talk on Mu, I thought I'd try to share just a few of the little moments that really struck me. And also just let Mu speak for itself. That one word beyond and before words. A monk comes to Joshu earnestly asking, does a dog have Buddha nature or not? Joshu says, no. You know, it's said he was soft-spoken, but that literally, it means no. Nothing. There is not. But Joshu is not simply saying, no, a dog does not have Buddha nature. He's not answering in that way. His mood is a no with no opposite. In Ryo'un's Teisho, he sort of turn toward this question of what is this monk really asking? He would have known, of course, we know that Shakyamuni Buddha, enlightened, said all sentient beings are originally Buddha from the start. Buddha itself, that just means awake. Sentient and non-sentient as well. No, there is no Buddha nature in a dog. Contradicts this. As I was pulling this together, it came up was, well, being confounded in this practice can be helpful. But Joshu doesn't withhold anything. He's not trying to pull the ground out from under the monk. Mu is the ground. This groundless ground. Mountains, rivers, earth, trees, clouds. The sounds in the room. Is it raining? That groundless ground. Pitter, patter, pitter, patter. Ryo'un Roshi has often savored the beauty of this question. That without seeing, the monk is showing the very thing he asks. Does a dog have Buddha nature? This time, Roshi said, the question itself shows the monk doesn't have an eye. It's his way of putting, he doesn't see. Actually, always felt a pretty full measure of gratitude to this monastic for not seeing somehow on our behalf. The Roshi said, a better question would be, what is a dog? This most basic question. Is there a dog or not? Is there a dog in this world? And then I can hear him asking, if there is a dog, what is that really? What is a dog? He went on, if you really see this world, there's no such thing as dog. This in no way precludes our deep affection for these creatures. But there's no such thing. And what about Buddha nature? Is there anything like Buddha nature or not? Dog, Buddha nature, this, equally just concepts, constructs. We proclaim this each time we chant the Heart Sutra. All these phenomena, all these forms, all these shapes, and at the same time, no thing, nothing. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no color, sound, smell, taste, touch thing. With great respect to this Heart Sutra, Mu conveys all of it in one sound. There was one moment in this talk by the Roshi, one moment still going on. where he said about all this, "You have a dog there. Bow wow. What is the real dog? Is there a dog at all? Bow wow. Bow wow." What if this is about us? Each of us. Standing up, sitting down, laughing, crying. This free functioning. How is that? There's nothing here but birds. What is the real shape of those birds, of that dog, of me? What shape does it take? Joshu answered all of these questions by saying, "Mo." We experience Mu as a barrier, sometimes like the face of a steep mountain, this impenetrable stone, or a vast chasm, or a little crevice that requires a leap, that hair's breadth of difference, and still you can't just figure a bridge across it. Sometimes called a gate with a front, but no back. This is actually helpful, all this barrier, even if it's not true. You are the gate. To study the way is to study the self. What is this I that thinks there's a border, a barrier, a gate out there in front of me? Mu isn't a barrier. If we try to describe it, it's more like a solvent, or Muman called it a brickbat, an instrument to break through. And at the very same time, this there's Joshu, there's none other, and there's the complete presentation of this borderless world. To study the self is to forget the self. The only barrier is this sense of separation, this belief in a divided world. We hold fast to it. And no wonder it's instilled in us from birth on. There was a moment in Ryo'un's Teisho when he talked about this, and he just said, that all his growing up, Masamichi Yamada, Masamichi Yamada, Masamichi Yamada, and I mean, how fostered he would have been, and how this brilliant child and this great father and this remarkable family, very difficult story early on. But, this is who I am. We work so hard to learn how to navigate the separation, to defend, maintain, as David Lloyd puts it, to secure the insecurable. Muman says we're like a phantom haunting the weeds. Excuse me. So, melt into mu, or let mu melt that sense of boundary. Nothing but mu. Let fall the sense of I, other, and that difference. Here we are so wholeheartedly, so bare. And yet we can't make this happen. This great release, this falling into this right here. We can't do it. But mu can. Not this year, but in earlier talks, this line has just stuck with me from Ryo'un. Because mu is whole, the power of this whole mu awakens you. Awakens us to great freedom. This freedom we'll hear about tonight, resolving the matter of life and death. Mu. That's life. Mu. That's death. Mu. That's our broken heart. In his commentary, Muman writes, though you stand on the brink of life and death, you enjoy the great freedom. To this, Ryo'un said, if you really see this is whole, then life and death, born, dying, is simply, functioning. I mean, simply, wholly, powerfully, thoroughly. It's also this sound, this drip, 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 drip. That's it. All of it. It's actually not quite right to say we become free. You are freedom itself from the start. One freedom. Freedom and compassion. In this empty, infinite, zero world, the wellspring that there is anything at all. The fact that we're here together, sitting, practicing, listening, getting tired of sitting. Just one compassion. To forget the self is to be actualized by the myriad things. This forgetting can be to disappear. Many have had a glimpse of this. Or it can be to suddenly realize there's no separation. That tree is my eye, that bird is my hearing. Just want to share a recent exchange with a student describing mu practice briefly. the student wrote, one key for me in the lock on the door to Mu, in parentheses, doorless door with lockless lock, has been the word actualize. My translation of Dogen's To Study the Mind, different translation, reads, to forget the mind is to be actualized by the myriad things. When I was first trying to memorize the Dogen passage, I kept going blank on that word, the word actualized. It seemed like such an odd choice of verb. But now that word has become a key. When I breathe Mu and empty myself out, I can see better how I am literally actualized, made actual, at least momentarily, by the myriad things. I can see that they shape and reshape and entirely include what I take to be me. The shifting myriad things are the immediate cause of my own shifting shape. We're like interlocked pieces in a single kaleidoscope, fluid and multidimensional, and also blinking in and out of existence. You are the pieces, 10,000 myriad things, and at the same time, only one. Joshu is showing us this world. Lo. Back in April, we had a 30 days of Zen that Sarah beautifully composed and led. And there was a prompt on day 7 that could be a pointer to us. I'm about to stop, but please just. It read, as each thing arises, allow that thing's name to fall away. Allow descriptions to fall away. Allow reactions and interpretations to fall away. Instead of being a witness, being one who witnesses, play with letting the witness drop away. Allow experience itself to enjoy the moment. One student read this and commented, I can't help but think that as we allow everything to fall away, only then do we allow ourselves to fall into Mu. Actually, it's already so. Rinzai had this great line, there is nothing at all to do, so do the best you can. Yeah, oddly, in this great commitment, this earnest effort, nothing at all to do. It's really coming home to that. And we do that just step by step, breath by breath. I have this whole compilation of language from Dogen. I think it may just find its way into another talk so that we can end now with our 4 vows and go on exploring this practice, realization. Thank you for listening for this practice.